What are we go? We're gonna be like the two-headed monster with Chuba Hubbard and Jonathan Brooks.
I don't know why the fuck they drafted Jonathan Brooks. What a moron.
Oh, good. Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Showdown Strategy Show. All right, so we've had some ugly games. We've had some great games, some good games. This one might take the cake, might not. You know, sometimes it just turns out to be a dud. But Baltimore Ravens hosting the Cincinnati Bengals, divisional spot, big time AFC North game. These are always fun games. Cincinnati desperately needing a win, but got some injuries. Zach Moss done for at least the rest of the regular season. T. Higgins not going to play either. Orlando Brown at left tackle could be an issue on top of that. So we got a lot to get into. Dave Loughran, and as always with me, Matt Gajewski. What's up, brother?
Not too much. Highest total on the entire slate this Thursday night. So we're in for a nice treat if you have Amazon Prime or whatever channel they put this nonsense on. But yeah, it's a great game. I can't wait to play DFS for it.
Me too. Me too. Let's get into it. Happy you guys could join us. Hey, if you don't mind, take a single second. Atone for your sins this morning. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I know Matt's atoned already. Always does. Always quick to atone. And leave a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts on this spot. Always try and read and respond to all these comments. Of course, this show has a bit more of a shelf life than the live before lock. So yeah, watch it now, watch it throughout the day. And if you want to listen in podcast form, we got you covered. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever it is you want to listen. Ready to get going?
Yeah, let's do it.
What's going on? What are you laughing at?
Me, or is Jordan laughing?
You had a smirk on your face.
Just general happiness. I'm not laughing at anything.
Oh yeah, you're just happy? Okay.
I'm a little tired, but I'm doing pretty good today. I can't complain.
Well, you didn't sleep well?
I'm not a good sleeper, man. I don't sleep well. I haven't slept through the night, I think, in my entire life, unless I've just been absolutely hammered.
Do you and then and then it's just bad sleep. Like, yeah,
you're just in a coma.
But you sound like you need to be on a CPAP machine. You know, you're snoring terribly. You're just gonna stop breathing half of the time. So wait, do you wake up and like can't fall back to sleep, or you just wake up intermittently and kind of fall back to sleep?
Yeah, I just wake up constantly and then fall asleep again.
Yeah. Yeah. Breaking up that sleep pattern is not good. The sleep cycle. I had a tough time last night too. My knee kept bothering the hell out of me, man. It's fine throughout the day, but then when it's straight and I don't move it, I wake up and it's like this terrible pain. So I hear you. I feel okay though. Better than I did on Wednesday morning because I stayed up till 1 following the election.
Are you probable for your hockey championship? Questionable? Where are we at in the injury report?
We had the second round of the playoffs yesterday. I went with the boys and I watched and I thought about suiting up and we lost 5-4.
Oh no.
So the good thing though is that the next season doesn't start till December 3rd. So now I have like a full month.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm sorry for you and your team.
Yeah. They could have used me, Matt. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, yeah, it sucks. Ready? Let's get into this. We got a lot to talk about here. And I guess I'll ask you, as I always do, kind of lay the foundation for us before we dive into individual spots, build a lineup out with a single lineup sim in a little bit. The Ravens are 6-point favorites at home, 6.5 in some spots. And it's a 53-point total. When these teams faced each other in week 5, there were 79 total points. Game was won with a Justin Tucker overtime field goal. Should have been won by the Bengals. 10 total touchdowns scored in that game. It was wild. How do you see this game playing out today? Because personally, I kind of like the under.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. There was a lot of weird noise in that game, just like the turnovers. And then, of course, going into overtime and stuff, it's going to lead to more points. But the Bengals kind of tried to lose that game. I think both defenses have improved at least a little bit since that first outing. The Ravens are making deals, getting guys like Tre'Davious White. We'll see if there's anything left or even how much he plays in this first game. But they've improved a little bit, and the Bengals, they're still not a good defense by any means, but their pass rush has improved a little bit. They're not just a complete walkover as they were in the past. We're still talking about two of the better offenses in the league, so I still think both teams move the ball, but probably not to the same extent as we saw in that first game.
That's kind of how I see it too. Plus, the absence of T. Higgins doesn't help either. Although your favorite receiver, Jamar Chase, could be busy today, Matt.
The number 6 or 7 receiver in the NFL very well could be.
6 or 7. That sounds like the amount of targets he gets each game.
As long as Mike Gesicki's out there, I mean, we're going to see Jamar Chase function as the 1B to Gesicki's 1A.
Dude, I'll tell you something crazy. Mike Gesicki, his targets per route run in the 4 games that Higgins has missed, do you know what his targets per route run are?
I know it's absurd because he's barely on the field and he's targeted incessantly. I don't have the exact figure. It's probably like first in the NFL.
31%.
Yeah, that's bananas.
So that's why when people are like, well, he's not running a ton of routes, he's not seeing a ton of snaps. Does it matter? Should we care? But I don't see why you should care if they're using him exclusively as a weapon in the passing game.
Just adds more volatility because you can't catch passes if you're not on the field. So when you're playing like 40%, you're kind of capping what your ceiling could be in an offense. But at the same time, we're talking about outlier numbers for the targets per route, which makes me think it's not sticky. I don't know. This is just like my brain trying to rationalize Mike Gesicki in the year 2024 being such an important piece of your pass game. But here we are, and he's out playing Jamar Chase.
What?
For those of you in chat that are ready to, like take my head, I'm kidding.
But what if Mike Gesicki's also just good?
I think he's good. He's, as a player, sort of tricky to evaluate. He has the tight end position designation, which puts half the coaching staff's minds into a pretzel. But he's hyper athletic and he's big. And if you use him as a big slot receiver, which is how we always should have been used, he's a talented player. But it takes an open thinker at head coach to figure this out, which he hasn't always had. And he doesn't necessarily need to play 100% of the snaps in order to be maximized. And it seems like the Bengals have figured that out. I still have some hesitation, but they've been using him better than just about any other team in his career.
So when I look back, I go, he was with Miami for 5 years. They never really used the tight end the way they should have, right? Like Gesicki had a few nice 700-yard seasons with them. It was fine. But then you go to Cincinnati or New England. All I'm saying, Matt, is that it feels as though they have found a way to use Mike Gesicki where he is actually very valuable and competent. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying he's a top 3 tight end in the league, but this is a guy who came into the league as someone that we kind of all thought, hey, he could be really good. And it just never materialized. But my God, when he's used the way that he has been, when T. Higgins is off the field, he's been great. 5 for 100 last week, 7 for 73 the week before. In week 2, T. Higgins was out. He had 7 for 91. The only game he didn't do anything was that opening week against New England with Higgins out, where nobody on Cincinnati did anything. So, yeah, I mean, I guess the question is he worth the price point? I think he is.
I don't know if he is. He's really, really close to those elite players in this slate. So I don't know. Would you rather play like a stars and scrubs build, take an extra stud and punt it off, or play like a couple guys in the mid-range? It's what I'm thinking about right now. Obviously, there's ways you can, kind of play this both ways, and there's a lot of options today, so a lot of unique lineup constructions. I tend to think he's a little underpriced, but I still think I would rather get up to like more of a stars and scrubs build than really hitch my wagon to a mid-price Gesicki and find myself with like a defense. Like if it's Gesicki and a defense versus, I don't know, a Zay Flowers and a Charlie Kohler, I'm picking the Charlie Kohler side.
Mike Gesicki's in no man's land though today. Look at that
That's what
price
I'm
point.
saying.
Yeah, I know. Like, how often do we ever get actual playable guys in that range? Never, right? Like
His,
we had, oh, good, we had Mike Williams in week 2 or something like that. They finished, we didn't even have a reception.
I just think to myself, every time you're hand building and you're just shoving guys in the lineups and you see last guy 6K, you're just like, no.
Fuck. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
I'm like using the single lineup sim and I'm throwing guys in. I just want to see how it looks. And then I end up with 6K left. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I
Guess I'm
guess I'm going to
leaving.
restart.
Guess I'm leaving 3K on the table. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, but hold on a second. Let's just back up for a minute. Uh, let me give you some 1v1s here, okay? Mike Gesicki or Rashad Bateman?
Gesicki.
Is it even close for you? Like with it's not even close for me, especially with Deontay Johnson in the mix.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it's close.
Mike Gesicki or Justin Tucker?
Gesicki. Closer.
Mike Gesicki or Justice Hill?
Gesicki.
All right, and then 2 more: Gesicki or McPherson? Gesicki, right? And then Gesicki or Deontay Johnson is a very easy one.
I think so too. You just don't know how much Deontay is going to play.
Me neither. Now, look, I know I went down to 4,800 there, but Bateman's only $800 cheaper than Gesicki. Tucker's not that much less expensive. Hill's 5,200. So it's just a weird range is all I'm saying. Like if you get down below Chase Brown, right? So below Chase Brown, you're not going to have Higgins. You're not going to have Zach Moss. What do we look towards in that range? Once you get below 9, there's a massive gap is what I'm saying below a 9K Chase Brown.
Yeah, and it might lead you to some weird lineup constructions. I'm looking at this right now. It looks like you can still max out your salary pretty easily with these guys. It's just like a lot of kickers and defenses. So I don't know. You run into like 2v2s, which might be interesting to talk about. There's a lot of volatility on this slate. I still don't buy that this is like locked in Mike Gesicki's role. We have a long sample of just Mike Gesicki's career, and he's a volatile player. We're projecting him for 15 DraftKings points, which seems a bit rich in my opinion. But
we have I know this for a fact that we have his targets per route run pretty high in this spot.
Well, we should. They've been very high all year, and we lost Eric All. I don't really think that increases a lot for Gesicki, but yeah, man, like for reference, I think the point distribution between him and Yoshivas, who we have at 5.8, should be somewhat closer. Not like significantly, but
I'm glad you brought that up. That's what I wanted to ask you. So without T. Higgins, and I think we could both assume that they're going to struggle to run the football in this game, right? Like the Ravens' run defense has been dominant this year.
I agree.
So if that, and not to say that it's impossible, but let's say they do struggle to move the football on the ground. Who knows what Jermaine Burton's role is going to look like? You know, the guy comes out in week 7 or week 8, and you go, wow, that was, you know, he made a great grab down the sideline. Great grab down the sideline for 40 plus yards, played 41% of snaps, by far his highest of the season. And then he's an inactive. I don't know if you saw that picture. Someone took a picture of him saying like he was at a casino the night before, like well into the morning, and that's why he missed Saturday's practice. But he was a coach's decision inactive on Sunday. So I have no clue. Do they just bring him back and like, oh wow? Because Joe Burrow was saying before he was inactive earlier in the week, Joe Burrow was like, hey, I want this guy to get more opportunities. We like him. But apparently he's a head case. And I don't know if he's going to be active and play 0 snaps tonight, Matt, or play 60% of snaps and Yosivas sees less. Or if just Mike Gesicki ends up being the guy once again that is targeted 9 times.
Yeah, you just don't have a lot of options in this pass game, especially when Jamar can't actually command an alpha target share. You have a lot left over. So it's tricky. And I mean, especially when you have a guy playing so few snaps as I guess Mike Gesicki is. I don't know. You bring up an interesting point with Jermaine Burton. If they do use him in a focal point role, like that could definitely hurt Gesicki. when T. Higgins has been on the field, who's clearly a priority for them as he should be, Gesicki just was erased. Nothing. Like the guy had a game with 0 targets. So, I mean, if they do decide to use Chase more, if they decide to involve Jermaine Burton potentially, that probably comes at the expense of Gesicki.
Okay, you wouldn't think more at the expense of Yeshivas?
I mean, what is there to take away?
True. True.
He had 1 game of 7 targets. I mean, he hasn't seen more than 4 targets in any game since week 3.
No, but I'm just talking about like a target distribution. Does it take away from Gesicki, who Burrow clearly trusts and likes right now? Or is it just like a larger, more unpredictable distribution between all of these other guys that already are unpredictable?
I don't know. Gesicki has 14 targets over the last 14 targets over the last 2 games. He had 4 combined targets over the previous 4.
Yeah, but I really think the absence of T. Higgins is massive.
Right. And now we're introducing Jermaine Burton.
Yeah, but come on, like Jermaine Burton.
I'm not saying he takes away 11 targets.
No, I know you're not saying that he becomes what Jamar Chase should have been in your mind. But what I'm saying is that I would think it takes more away from, like a Trenton Irwin doesn't see 2 targets now, he sees 0 or something like that. Like I don't know. It's just to me a very odd spot because I look at a guy and I look at a guy and what's his name in Gesicki and I go, wow, in the 4 games that the 4 games that he's played, sorry for my like, delayed speech here. I'm just trying to pull something up. But 27 targets in 4 games without Higgins.
Yeah, man, it's legit, and I think it's fragile, probably more fragile than you and our projections for sure. I mean, I don't think you can also ignore the 4 targets in 4 games where Higgins played.
Okay. So then what's your approach here with the offense right now for Cincinnati? I mean, it's a perfect way to just kind of segue into how we go after these guys.
Yeah, I'll say this. Even if you do think his targets come down a little bit, he's still a little too cheap. But at the same time, it leads you to weird builds. As I scroll through this, it's a lot of like Gesicki with Tucker, Gesicki with like some other mid-price guy. And I think there's more ways to build this. When I ran my simulation the first time through, I got 60% Gesicki in the flex. I got 10% of him in the captain. I mean, that's just like way too high in my opinion. So if it comes down to it, I will certainly put some pretty severe caps on this and just try to spread it out, man. Like we have Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews is 4,200 without Isaiah Likely. Chase Brown is probably going to get 100% of the work, even though it's in a very tough matchup. Jamar Chase is on this slate. If you ever think he breaks out into the alleged top 5 receiver he is, we have both quarterbacks. Derrick Henry's on this slate. Zay Flowers is on this slate. There's now cheaper options like Tanner Hudson's going to play more. Charlie Kohler is with a certainty going to play more. He's at 600. There's just so many guys you can use where I can't really. I didn't even mention Deontay Johnson or like Yeshivas, Jermaine Burton. I just can't fathom playing 60% Gesicki when he's had games with literally 0 targets this year.
All right.
Are you going to play 60% Gesicki? I mean, that's wild to me.
I want to see what my lineups look like with him. And I just ran it now. I'm not entirely opposed to it. And I think probably one of the reasons for that is that Mark Andrews is wildly underpriced with Isaiah Likely out. So I think there's actually a little bit of value that can be extracted from this team, whereas Baltimore often never has value that we could grab. It'd be like a relatively overpriced Rashad Bateman and then 2 tight ends that are the same price who just cannibalize each other's production. You look at a guy in Isaiah Likely, he leads the Ravens in red zone targets and end zone targets this year. And then you say he's out. And over the last 4 weeks, Mark Andrews leads them with 8 red zone targets, 3 end zone targets, and 4 touchdowns. So you've seen a change in trajectory there for the way that he's been used inside the red zone and used in general. You look at routes run for these guys, snap counts, even though they overlap and they're on the field at times together. Isaiah Likely being out in this game. Like if you were to ask me to price Mark Andrews with Isaiah Likely out in a 53 total game, especially against the Bengals team that really struggles against tight ends, I'd be putting Mark Andrews in that dead zone up there with Gesicki.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's a little cheaper though at 4,200, where you can still probably get an extra stud. I'm still trying to parse this out and look through lineups. I have looks like a fair amount of both of them, which is probably the best way to play it if you're trying to get like Mike Gesicki in a large portfolio of your lineups. But
you know what I'm finding, Matt? Not to cut you off. One thing I'm finding is a lot of the lineups, even with Gesicki, still look good, but it's probably say, like, all right, check this lineup out. Mark Andrews, captain, Chase Brown, Derrick Henry, Justin Tucker, Lamar Jackson, Mike Gesicki. Like that's not bad.
No, and there's going to be plenty of good lineups with him. My whole argument is 60% is wild.
Oh yeah, I get that. And would I be very much okay tamping down exposure a little bit, getting a little bit less of Gesicki? Sure, no doubt about it. Because I also have 12% exposure at captain right now. I'm also not surprised that Mark Andrews is my highest exposed captain on a slate with a lot of expensive players. Mark Andrews could come out there and just shit the bed, no doubt. But I don't think you can overstate the absence of Isaiah Likely on this football team right now.
No, he's my highest on captain too. I mean, to me, this is just a slate full of volatility and fragility.
Big time. Like you don't know Mark Andrews' role this year without Likely. We know we assume we assume that it expands, but we don't know what it is. And we don't know the Jermaine Burton situation and how that's going to affect the offense without T. Higgins.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts with Baltimore, as we'll get to. They just added a third receiver. They can use that more. They're already a team that uses a ton of weird personnel groupings because Ricard technically is labeled a fullback, even though he's really a 6th offensive lineman. They have 3 tight ends they use. Charlie Kolar, he plays about a third of the snaps. They're mostly blocking, but his role could expand. Do they use more 3 wide with Deontay Johnson? There's just moving parts everywhere with that offense. And they have 2 running backs they like. There's also moving parts with Cincinnati. Jermaine Burton is probably the biggest question mark with that team. But, I mean, I still have real questions just about the targets per route for Gesicki. How many routes is he going to run? Like, what are the focal points of this offense? Like, it's not an easy matchup for him, even though people think Baltimore's secondary stinks. Kyle Hamilton's probably going to be all over him, who's a big safety. There's just questions really across the board for these 2 teams, which I love playing these kind of showdowns. This will be one where I probably make a little more adjustments than normal. And some of it is just going to be to smooth things out. So I'm not way out over my skis on any player. For example, just like there's no chance I'm playing 60% Gesicki. And it's largely just a risk management thing. But yeah, man, there's a lot of ways you can go because of the uncertainty. And that's the other thing to consider is like props, whatever you look at. This is not your normal slate. Like there's fragility even in the projections from the sports books today. Everyone has to make an assumption.
Right. Yeah, we can look at props too. Ricky asks, is Burton the slot guy? Isn't that where Gesicki's been running most of his routes from? I could be wrong. I don't know. I mean, he's ran 33 routes on the season. Only 4 of them have been in the slot. Yeshivas has ran 50+% of his from the slot, 130 out of 258 or something like that. So, yeah.
Gesicki has been in the slot on 65% of his routes.
Yeah. He was asking if Burton was, but
Burton's not a slot receiver. No.
He's the guy that like, that's the thing that's crazy about him is if they only use him on a handful of snaps, they might just take shots downfield. Like I think his only 2 receptions this year have both gone for 40+ yards, Matt.
Well, he's hard to like, his insertion into the offense makes things weird because Chase largely plays the boundary. You put Jermaine Burton on the boundary. Like Gesicki can't play anywhere but the slot. He can't play in line. He can't play outside. So what do? You have Drew Sample and Gesicki on the field at the same time? Like this is the logjam that teams run into that have Gesicki on their roster because you can't use him anywhere but the slot. So I don't know. He's really, really tricky, man.
Very. His receiving yards prop 51.5 on Pinnacle. That's a pretty big number. 51.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's too high.
Okay. And Yosivas is at
3.5.
22.5. There's nothing on Burton. Jamar Chase is at 35. Nah, 82.5. All right. Yeah, that third highest receiving prop on the slate is Mike Gesicki.
I get it. I think it's volatile, but I get it.
Yeah. All right. What are you doing with Burton? I kind of want to play him.
I'm definitely going to play him. Not a lot. You don't have to play him a lot.
You don't
Where
have
do
to
we
play
have
him.
him? I'm looking at our tools right now. We have him at, I don't even know if we're projecting him right now. We have him at 0% ownership.
Yeah, that'll change because they're saying he's going to play.
Sure. We have him at 1 point.
What's that?
We have him at 1 point.
Okay. He's really
1.13.
He's just really tough to project. You know, I was saying to someone yesterday, don't remember who it was, but like if you wanted to play Jermaine Burton today, you almost have to just make manual adjustments on him because how do you project his role after being a healthy DNP last week?
100% agree. You're making guesses. My approach for situations like this, which come rarely, look at his ownership. If you think it's too low, right now he's coming in at like 1%. In my opinion, that's too low. Bump his projection to something where you get a little bit of him.
Yeah, maybe I would bump the projection and then because you and I, it might be something I'm doing later at night, especially once we actually get the inactives. For all we know, he's just going to be inactive. We don't know. I don't think he will be, but I might end up just bumping him and then capping it at like 15% or something.
Yeah,
like making
I would have
sure
no
I'm
problem
not
with that.
Yeah, making sure I'm not getting an egregious amount of because he's as live as anybody to just give you a 0.
Maybe the livest.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely the livest. Definitely. So, but also Yoshiva's, this is okay. I'm not trying to like beat a dead horse here, but hopefully you guys can appreciate us, this morning kind of going back and forth and figuring out where we're at on this because we're just doing it on the fly. The more I think of it, it's like, okay, Yoshivas hasn't been impressive, right? They're clearly not enamored with this guy. He's not doing anything great. Trenton Irwin, like Trenton Irwin's done nothing of note. So then you go, all right, they're without T. Higgins. They're facing a Baltimore defense that I think is better than they've been, but still, they've still been really beat up, especially on long plays. So I say, all right, Chase Brown might get some dink and dump screenplay shit. Fine. Jamar Chase is clearly the guy, and you have Mike Gesicki as well, but he's not on the field all that often. What if they do just go out there and kind of build off of that week 8 game for Burton, give him 50% of snaps, and he gets 3 targets, 4 targets, 2 of them downfield? That's the way I see this. I don't want to have none of him today. That's all it comes down to. I can eat the 0 and be okay with it, but I don't want to look back and go, man, how did we not see Jermaine Burton getting those couple of deep targets against this Baltimore defense?
We're in agreement here. And the only thing I would really add is if you're playing one lineup, unless you're feeling super risky, this isn't a conversation for you. If you're running a portfolio of lineups, if you're playing 20 and you want to throw them in one, if you're playing 150, I would certainly have a piece of that portfolio dedicated to him, but it's always going to be a small piece. Definitely nothing above like 5% or something, 10% max, in my opinion, as it stands right now. But yeah, I mean, I guess this kind of goes 2 ways. One, if you're Cincinnati, like how do you trust this guy? Obviously, it's gotten pretty difficult. But at the end of the day, he's super talented, highly drafted. you're kind of doing your team a disservice by continuing to play Yoshivas and Irwin and these guys that are just clearly horrible. Like you have an option that might help your offense. So I don't know. You got to reconcile this with his inability to like come to meetings and stuff. I don't know how they're going to do that, which is why we're talking about this uncertain situation to begin with. But I just, at this point, how do you keep him off the field? Everyone else outside of Chase and Gesicki, I guess, is just so bad.
Exactly. And he actually looked good against the Eagles.
He's looked good everywhere he's been. He just can't. I don't. I don't know,
No,
man. He's like,
you're right. I mean, he's clearly got some, and I'm not trying to make light of it. Like the guy clearly has some issues.
yeah,
So,
he's had issues his whole career. He was at 2 SEC teams, awesome on both of them, and could never play like full snap shares.
do you think he would have been drafted earlier if he had a clean record, just as far as like the discipline or the, behavioral stuff goes?
I think it would have led to more production, which probably would have got him drafted higher.
Right. Yeah. Good point.
Because he could never really like, it took him a long time to even work into a full-time role in college, which was always, and obviously I'm not privy to this information, but you're like, how's this guy not playing more? How's this guy not playing more? And then he goes to the draft process and you hear all the problems he has. And then they persist in the NFL. And then as soon as you get the full picture, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
this is why.
Yeah, exactly. The only place I disagree with you though is if I was playing one lineup, I'm still not entirely opposed to playing Burton. Like if I'm playing one lineup and I go, I'm trying to win, I'm not trying to like min cash, and I go with like a Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Jermaine Burton stack and the $15 single entry or something like that, or there's the $5 single entry, and a lot of people play that huddle out there. I'm perfectly fine with it, honestly.
Yeah, that's a risk question. This is just like
Right.
me being a coward.
I'm, I'm fine taking a little bit of risk there because I appreciate risk when the risk is built around uncertainty.
I agree with that.
Like I'm not just going, hey, let me play this shit bag that's played 10% of snaps every week, and I'm just going to load him into all my single entry lineups and hope that he has one target on his guaranteed 10% snap share. With Burton, at least like if he goes for 0, I go, okay, fine. Knowing that he played 40% of snaps 2 weeks ago and could play 50% as a rookie whose role could expand, and maybe they try and get him more involved.
Yeah, there's just the unknown element that he could be good, whereas most of the players we're considering
Yes.
in his range we know are unemphatically just bad.
That's 100% it. There is a possibility that he could actually be good. Yep. Anyway, I love that. Is that LeBrier? Am I pronouncing that right? And you can see it being a story that he has on ESPN, and everybody talks about how Burton redeemed himself with a killer game this week. Yeah, on prime time. Tell me about it. But anyway,
Anything to talk about, like anything but the game on ESPN.
I haven't turned on ESPN in God knows how long.
Dude, me either.
All right. Fun show so far. We're going, I mean, this is kind of how I like doing this show. Just go everywhere. You know what I mean? Instead of having this strict regimented, like, okay, what about the running backs at this, come on. We're better than that, Matt. Paul Newman said, Dave, your point is valid. Burrow has endorsed the guy enough. Yeah, he endorsed him after the Eagles game, and then they sat him because apparently he can't get his shit together. Anyway, hey, guess what, Matt? Did you know? You know this, so I don't know why I'm asking you if you know, because you and I do shows together multiple times a week. But did you know that you could sign up at any of our partners, any of our sports books, or any of the pick'em sites and get an entire month free of Stokastic Core Sims package, $100 value, and no matter how many you sign up on, an additional month is included, so you can stack them on top of each other and on top of each other just by using the link in the description or the chat?
I did know this, and this is such a good deal that I've literally been spreading this word of mouth when I'm not on streams to people I know that play DFS just in my personal life, because I can't believe this is actually a deal. I don't know how long it's going to be around, but I can tell you it's not long enough if you're a player. You need to take advantage of this right now. It's the single best promotion I think I've ever seen if you're in the industry.
Absolutely. And we're always doing good promos. This is the best one. And I'll tell you why it's even better today. Because if you're in any of the states where Bet365 is available, they do, not only do you get $150 in bonus bets when you sign up, deposit 10 and bet 5, right? Not only do you do that and you get the free month of Stokastic Core. Now, of course, you have to use the claim offer button and you have to sign up. It's actually really simple. Sign up, deposit 10. This is Bet365, but they all have the same process. Sign up, deposit, make a first bet. The moment that bet settles, you have you just take a screenshot of your settled bet and then take a screenshot of your welcome email and email it to us at support@stokastic.com. I mean, shit, you could do it right now and bet on some Russian ping pong. Not that I'd recommend it. And the moment that settles, you have your free month and you even get it before tonight's Thursday game. I mean, Matt, that's one way to do it. But either way, tonight, every Thursday, Bet365 does their touchdown promo. $10 in bonus bets per every touchdown scored. When you wager $50+ in same game parlays, minimum odds of a plus 100, even money. It's amazing. I've made, since the start of October, over $300 in bonus bets alone. And we've won 3 of the 5 parlays. All 3 of those have been at plus 130 or longer. So it's just the best promo out there right now, hands down. Last time these teams faced each other, there were 10 touchdowns scored. Would have been $100 in bonus bets. I'm not saying it happens today, but it's a 53-point total. So if you want to get all of the tools, if you want to build better lineups, make more money, and get bonuses across all of these sports books, use that link in the description and chat. Check it out. And we'll see you guys over there. 21 years or older to gamble. You have a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. And also join our Discord. It comes along with every single package. All right. I want you to talk to me about Mark Andrews a little bit here and then dig into this passing game with Deontay Johnson in his second game in Baltimore.
Andrews, first of all, should see the biggest spike on the team in his targets per route run. And I think that is also boosted just by a snap floor that's going to rise. Isaiah Likely has been a huge part of this offense. And it's not just been the routes. He's a decent blocker. So he's on the field a lot. Most of those should go to Andrews. Charlie Kolar is probably going to jump on the field. But the real difference between, like inserting Charlie Kolar into the lineup versus an Isaiah Likely or Mark Andrews type, Kolar is kind of just a blocker. He only ran 3 routes in the last game. He's not a dynamic athlete. I think when you see Kolar come on the field, it's for very specific situations. And then all of that receiving work that is vacated by Likely should go to Andrews. They don't really have like a clear replacement other than Andrews for what Isaiah Likely did on the field. So his floor and ceiling just much higher than the salary indicates. I think he's one of the best value plays on the entire slate. And that's evidenced by our projections and stuff. I got 50% of him at flex in my first run. Actually, this was the biggest surprise to me all morning as he came in as my highest owned captain. I debated bringing this down just to spread the risk across the board, but honestly, I didn't do it and I'm not sure I'm going to. When you look at the lineups he provides and the studs you can get, everything looks awesome with Andrews. Not to mention just like him versus Gesicki, you have the much higher implied team total and scoring expectation. So 1-for-1, I think I'd just straight up rather have Andrews right now.
This is the question I've been wanting to ask you because I don't know the answer to it. I'm not sure you do either, but you can at least help me out. Mark Andrews' role last year when Isaiah Likely was an afterthought, the previous season, right? We know what Mark Andrews' role looked like. What percent of that role do you think returns on a team now in 2024 that is without Isaiah Likely?
90%, 95% maybe.
Okay. So if your answer is 95%, then Mark Andrews is egregiously underpriced today.
I think so. Our tools think so. Just our raw projections think so. I agree with it. He is aside from you get some weird numbers when guys are priced at 200 and they're going to get a catch. So among the guys that are actually projected to play in this game, he's our highest projected value on this slate, and it's not particularly close. Much higher than Gesicki.
Much higher.
Which I agree with.
So do I.
Now, they're both good.
I'm just trying to think, what would Mark Andrews' price be on a showdown slate? Right? What would his price be on a showdown slate? If this all things the same, all things equal last year without Isaiah Likely or Isaiah Likely's minimized role?
7,800.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say anywhere between 7 and 70, 7,500.
Yeah, somewhere
So
in there.
pretty crazy.
Which
Pretty
is, for the
crazy.
record, what him and Gesicki probably should be.
Sure.
Like
Right.
Gesicki 78, maybe Andrew 74.
Yeah. 7. Yeah, exactly. Let's see. What was his price? He was 6,400 against Kansas City.
Okay, maybe I'm a little high, but definitely not 42.
No, definitely not. Still, that's still way underpriced. Anyway, are you doing? Is there anything we can do here with Deontay Johnson? I know it's a second game, but it's also a short week. He's only been there for like 10 days.
You can definitely play him. I mean, we just saw DeAndre Hopkins do the same thing
Yeah.
for Kansas City in a situation that was extremely hard to project. And that's the thing is your lineups with Deontay Johnson are going to be bad. They're not going to project well unless you're just like getting a sprinkling of him or something. But it's really uncertain. The projection here is wild. I think the big difference in the situation is you could have at least made a case for DeAndre Hopkins immediately coming in and being the wide receiver one. I wouldn't have projected that. I still would have had Kelsey ahead of him. But Kelsey's dust at this point in his career. Maybe you could make a case for DeAndre being better than him. I don't think there's any way you can make a case he's better than Andrews or Zay Flowers. So I'm going to pump the brakes on that idea. That's the case you'd make if you did want to play a decent amount of Deontay Johnson, but I don't really see it in this spot. Whereas with DeAndre, it was a little bit cleaner path to like wide receiver one targets. I just don't see it here with him.
It's tough for me to see it too. Yeah, it really is. By the way, Gesicki's 4.5 reception prop juiced to the under. Andrews 3.5 reception prop juiced heavy to the over. 45.5 yards for Andrews, 51.5 for Gesicki. So not all that far off. Plus 230 to score for Mike Gesicki, plus 175 to score for Mark Andrews. That is the interesting one.
I'm going to be very heavy on Andrews today.
Yeah, I bet him at plus 220 anytime touchdown on Bet365. He's down to plus 165 on FanDuel. So very interesting stuff. Is Flowers your favorite pass catcher? Well, I mean, really, Andrews is going to be my favorite pass catcher at the price point. I don't have a lot of Flowers at the captain spot. I do have a decent amount of Flowers at flex, but it seems right now like he's kind of a guy that's falling by the wayside a little bit for me because of the other plays and the other value and the other spots on this slate. I don't have, I have 27% Zay Flowers right now.
I don't think he has, I joke about Jamar Chase and stuff on this slate, but I think Jamar Chase clearly has the best target share of anyone on this slate. Zay Flowers, I mean, at any point in time, he's live to finish with like 6 targets. Now he's hyper efficient on a lot of those. Lamar Jackson, he's not the front runner anymore to win MVP, but he's still a top 3 candidate. So you're attached to like an excellent offense, an excellent pass game. You're individually explosive, but your target share is just not going to be as high as some other players in the NFL, which makes him tricky to project. It's almost like Deebo Samuel or one of these players that are on an offense with a lot of other interesting skill position players. And this offense very much fits that mold. You have Andrews, you have Derrick Henry, Lamar's live to score a rushing touchdown at any point. So it makes him hard to project. What I'm trying to say here is I definitely don't want 0 of Zay Flowers. I don't want to be underweight to the field on him, but he's also a guy I probably do not want to be super overexposed to. Right now, I'm coming in a little light on him, negative 7.7% leverage score. In my personal builds, that's at, like I'm getting, this is wild, 3% in the captain, and then in the flex, 30%. I'm probably going to come up on that a little bit, but not get crazy. Just try to be somewhere near the field on him because of his upside.
Looking throughout the rest of these guys, I mean, we've talked Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, all of this. Those are the type of things we don't really need to go heavily into. We can do more so on live before lock, but like All right, I have 13% captain exposure to Burrow, 12% to Jamar Chase, 12% to Gesicki, 18% to Jackson, 24% to Andrews, and then it falls off a decent amount. We didn't talk about the running backs yet because we spent a lot of time, and I think rightfully so, on Gesicki, on Burton, on Mark Andrews, spots that are really going to, define how this slate breaks down depending on where your exposure goes. Chase Brown, they got Khalil Herbert. I have no clue if even if he does, he's been with the team for 2 days or something. So I have a tough time believing that he's worked in heavily, especially on third downs, on passing downs and stuff like that. They didn't really use Travion Williams at all last week. Brown played the large majority of snaps. I still think that's going to be the case today, Matt, where you're getting like 75, 80% snap share from Chase Brown involved in the passing game. I think he's going to have a tough time running the football, but he might just be on the field so much that it doesn't really matter.
That's kind of how I see it and why I have a lot of interest in him. He's not super expensive on this slate, which is another reason why I think you can get to him. Among the studs, he's one of the cheaper options. So he's definitely somebody we should be considering. I guess I do have one question for you. He has been a horrible pass blocker this year.
I know.
Horrible.
And they might be without Orlando Brown Jr. at left tackle, which could be pretty bad.
So I don't know that Trevion Williams is a good pass blocker. He's been with the team for like 5 years at this point, though. Maybe we are projecting just like a slightly higher snap share than we should. And I mean, to get carries, to get targets, you need to be on the field. But I mean, this pass blocking is very concerning to me. He is one of the worst pass blockers in the NFL.
He's not good. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to matter here. Yeah,
That's true.
I really don't. Like Burrow was phenomenal under pressure last game. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, under pressure. Threw 4 touchdowns.
Because his running back is fucking diving at people's knees all the time, missing blocks.
We'll take it. Yeah, 30 pressured on 36% of his dropbacks. Again, though, I don't know if it matters. Like they might just look to get the ball out quicker to guys like Brown and Gesicki and stuff like that. I don't know. It's a weird spot. They clearly didn't want to use Travion Williams last week. He played 9% of snaps.
Yeah, that's the other thing is like Chase Brown's a terrible pass blocker. Is Trevion Williams better? And the clue we got is all right. They didn't play this guy, even though Chase Brown's out here whiffing blocks left and right. So, I mean, that context clue suggests that Trevion Williams probably not that good either.
Can you really throw Khalil Herbert in there on passing downs after 2 days?
He probably just doesn't like even know the protections and stuff.
That's what I mean. It's 2 days.
Right. Maybe he's better. You know, the Bears have never really used Khalil Herbert in a pass game role either. They kind of have just like 3 early down backs on the roster, no one that pass blocks at all.
Jeez.
But anyway, to your point, I guess circling all the way back here, when you have 3 really bad pass blockers, why don't you just get like your most dynamic athletic back on the field, which is exactly what they did last week. So maybe I was making too much of that to begin with. And Chase Brown's snap share and workload, I mean, I don't think anyone would be surprised if he touches the ball 20 times here.
Yep. I'm with you. I think you just have to do it.
I like Chase Brown.
I do too. I don't think they have alternatives.
I agree with you.
It's not like Herbert's a preeminent pass catching or pass blocking running back.
No, they don't have anyone that can do this stuff.
Right. So just, it's like they talk to Joe. They say, look, dude, you're going to get beat up a little bit today, but we're going to try. I don't know. All right, here we go. I've been saving this one for last before we build a lineup out. And as always, kickers defense, I can give you my exposures. I have a tough time, generating riveting conversation around those 2 positions, but as far as kickers go in the flex, Matt, do I have?
You don't have any hot takes on Justin Tucker's bad year?
No, I don't at all. Maybe he's just getting older.
I don't know, man. Kicker is a very hard position to play.
He has a very low simulated ROI, -19. I only have 15% of him at flex. I have McPherson at 8%, but that's because you're getting value elsewhere. Mark Andrews value. Like you've got a couple guys that you're going to get at cheap spots that are just going to open some things up. And when that happens, you end up getting less of the kickers. We talk about it every single week. What are you doing with Derrick Henry?
He's the hardest guy, I think, to really decipher. Right now, I'm underweight. I don't have a strong take against that. He doesn't play as much as you guys think he does. Maybe, and those of you in this chat watching the show, you're probably aware of this. Justice Hill plays a lot for this team. Justice Hill plays in very clear pass down situations, third downs, down and distance, 2-minute drills at Derrick Henry's expense. So he's a very hard guy to project because he just doesn't have the same role as like a Saquon Barkley. But when you come in underweight, I mean, is there anything more scary than Derrick Henry just shoving it down your throat with one of those long? He had a long run like that in the last game these two teams played.
He did, and he did it against Tampa a couple of weeks ago on prime time, where he was kind of bottled up, not used a ton all game, and then they go, bring him in and unleash him. And he just went insane in the fourth quarter and totally iced the game.
I can't talk anyone out of playing Derrick Henry. Right now, the Sims gave me 4% captain, 32% flex. With the amount of studs on this slate, I don't think I would change that.
I wouldn't. I'd like a little bit more, honestly, but
yeah, I could see that too. Perhaps it would happen.
Like of all of the expensive guys from 9K and up, Brown, Flowers, Burrow, Chase, Henry, and Jackson, my least favorite is Flowers.
I agree with that.
And I think Chase Brown is just a necessity at this point. Not every lineup, but it's a necessity, even though it's a tough matchup on the ground.
I agree with that as well. He's also the cheapest of those studs.
He is. Yeah, exactly. And would you be shocked if he played another 90 or 80% of snaps? Sorry.
I almost think that's the most likely outcome.
Right. Me too. Hey, before we build our lineup and get out of here, any other spots that we haven't talked about, maybe value spots? You kind of touched on a few of them earlier with Cincinnati, but anything we have Kendrick Pryor projected. My guess is he's not even, I don't even know if he'll be active for this game if Burton plays.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. I think he'll be active today because Eric All's gone. So what Cincinnati's done is they've had 4 tight ends active, which most teams only keep 3 active. And that's come at the expense of one of their wide receiver positions. So I think they'll have 5 active wide receivers today with Jamar, Yoshivas, Irwin, Pryor, and Burton, because you have that extra roster spot without All.
So I thought it would be Charlie Jones.
He's out.
Oh, Charlie Jones is out?
Well, he's doubtful, but.
Oh, okay. Well, then you're right. Then it would be Pryor.
Yeah, I don't know. Who cares? He stinks.
What I'm saying though is Burton's projection could come up when we switch that. Because I don't think we'd be projecting Pryor for more fantasy points than Burton. That's what I'm saying.
I agree with you. I think Charlie Jones is more of a threat than Kendrick Pryor is.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, you got to watch inactives. I'm curious to see if Herbert's active today off the very short week. Who knows what they do? They're a team that's had a lot of weird active and inactive stuff. They had Kendall Milton active last game for the Bengals, so who knows? But I guess to circle back to your original question, some of the guys that you'd consider among the cheap players, Tanner Hudson could see his snaps rise at not really anyone's expense because Eric All's out. He's been playing a little bit here and there for this team. I just am not sure how high it could possibly rise. Eric All was doing some of the dirty work stuff. So if anything, I think this might just be a bump for Drew Sample. Tanner Hudson fits more of the Mike Gesicki role, whereas Eric All was more like Drew Sample, although more dynamic, but I don't know. We'll see. Drew Sample plays a lot.
Neither of them are minimum salary either.
Oh, did you want just straight minimum salary guys?
No, what I'm saying is the Drew Sample and Tanner Hudson guys, they're fine, but it's not like the Eric All injury thrust them into a bigger role now where you're like, oh wow, he's $400 in the flags.
Yeah.
Like Sample's still 2,600 in the flex, I think. Yeah, that's not that cheap.
He's going to play like 90% of snaps though.
He is going to be on the field a lot. Would you prefer him over Hudson?
Yeah. Just like Gesicki does everything Hudson does, but better.
Okay. And
I wouldn't be
last question.
surprised, if Gesicki snaps do rise, I think they come directly at like Hudson's expense.
Maybe Justice Hill ends up having a big game. He's just so difficult to get to week over week.
Yeah, he's really expensive. You're almost 10 out of 10 times just going down and taking Andrews or going up and taking someone else. He's hard to get to. If you don't think Chase Brown plays every snap, Trevion Williams is the backup. Otherwise, it's just all these receivers. I have so many problems with them. Largely personnel driven because both these teams will do weird things. We mentioned the Ravens. You have just so many options where you don't need to play these dusty receivers. Aguilar is going to have his packages as the field stretcher, but now you're introducing Deontay Johnson. So you now have Aguilar, Johnson, Bateman, and Zay Flowers for a team that runs 11 personnel at one of the lowest rates in the league. Even with likely out, you still have Kohler, who they'll use as a blocker. Then Ricard, the extra offensive lineman, fullback, whatever you want to call him, he plays a decent amount. So that's why I don't like any of the real cheap values for Baltimore. With Cincinnati, they'll use Gesicki and Sample on the field at the same time, which cannibalizes all your Irwin stuff. The only cheap guy there is Jermaine Burton. We already talked about him a ton, so I won't get into that again. But yeah, the really cheap guys, less in play than normal slates, in my opinion. And it's only exacerbated by having really cheap, likely really cheap Gesicki.
I'll say this. For me, assuming he's active, Burton is my favorite value play on this slate. From a tournament standpoint, obviously not if you're crazy enough to play cash games. Burton at 2,200 would be my favorite. And then all the way down there, if you're talking cheap, I think it would still have to be Charlie Kohler for me. I at the very least expect him to be on the field a lot. And look, at $600, you might get the 2-target game or something like that, Matt. You've seen it a couple times in the past few weeks. You could do worse than that, but you can't really do better with how bad it is down there in the guys that are in the triple digit, $100 range.
Ricard did score a touchdown last week. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
my friends were talking about it.
Kohler had like a 55-yard reception a few weeks ago for a touchdown.
Yeah, that was wild. His press conference after was hilarious. It was like he couldn't believe he actually got thrown to. It was awesome. He's like, I'm the slowest guy on the field. I can't believe I got the ball. Charlie Kohler's awesome.
Ready to build a lineup before we go?
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what we can come up with because I don't really have a good sense of where to go.
Same. And again, guys, if you join late, if you want to get access to any of our tools, the core package, $100 value for the month, that link in the description and the one in the chat that Jordan can throw in there. Very simply, just sign up with any of our sportsbook partners by clicking claim offer on that link. Follow those super simple steps up top and get a free month for every single one that you sign up on, right? You just deposit, place a first bet. So ultimately, you're going to end up getting a ton of bonus bets on all of those books or on the pick'em sites if you're in non-legal betting states. And you can stack as many months of core $100 monthly value as you want. And you can separate sports if you wanted to do basketball and football, however you decide to play it. The best promo, best offer we've probably ever done, and it's still running. So jump in. You have questions, hit me up on Twitter and join the Discord as well. All right, I went captain last time on Monday. What game was that? Oh, the Tampa game? Yeah, the Tampa game. How about Miller scoring that touchdown late? That put me, I was in bad shape and he scored and my profit just went, or my winnings just went up to where I eventually broke even.
Yeah, I didn't get anything done on that slate. So I was not paying too much attention by the end.
I broke even because of that touchdown.
That's always a good feeling.
Yeah. So you're up. Captain spot. Hit me.
Mark Andrews.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you there.
I just want to see what it looks like. We got a cheap captain option today.
All right. Well, if we're going to see what it looks like, then why don't we just, because you were talking about weird lineups with Gesicki, Why? Let's throw Mike Gesicki in there and see what it looks like where we've got Captain Andrews and then flex Mike Gesicki.
All right. Well, if this is our start, I'm going Lamar.
Yep. 8,600 remaining. Give me Jamar.
Yeah, we can really do whatever we want. All right. So we have two Bengals pass catchers. I mean, just so I was gonna say, man, this is hard. Burrow or Chase Brown?
Yeah. Well, I think we got it. Would you want Gesicki, Chase, and Brown without Burrow?
Maybe Burrow doesn't do anything on the ground. It is pretty condensed target share though. Like if Jamar Chase and Gesicki get there, would you be surprised if like 70% of that production is just those two guys?
Not at all.
Yes, I don't know. Maybe Burrow then.
Let's go Burrow. Then it comes down to so we're in a spot where we could do either defense. We could do Yeshivas, Aguilar, Sample. I'm not even including Burton yet because we have to wait to see what his projection looks like.
I think I go Yeshivas and just leave some salary.
Okay. Let's build one more.
Triple stack Cincinnati. Okay.
Let's build one more after this. Yeah, and we can leave Gesicki out, but go Mark Andrews captain again. No clue what this is going to look like. 98.
Yeah.
Sweet. Let's do one more with Andrews at captain again. And we don't have to go Mike Gesicki. So let's go Andrews, Lamar. What if you throw Henry in this lineup as well?
I like it.
I don't know if I do.
We've seen them both get there in the same game.
Definitely. All right, try it.
All right, so we're definitely going to need some kind of value.
I'm throwing Chase Brown.
You want to actively leave Gesicki out?
Yeah, and I threw Chase Brown in as well. That gives us 6,000 per player.
Okay. I guess let's just go all the way down. Give me Charlie Kohler.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Charlie Kohler. Well, if you go Charlie Kohler, you can play anybody now.
Oh, sick. We can get Jamar.
Yeah. So that's a Jamar Chase, Chase Brown, no Burrow with Andrews, Lamar, Derrick Henry, and Charlie Kohler.
I got the results. It's good.
Dude. Oh, did you run it?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. I like it.
I like it too. It's weird off the board a little bit. It got pretty good results. I'm running 20% to first in small field.
And what did it come up? What was the ROI on the small field 20 to first?
96%.
Nice. Okay. I personally ran 25 to first at 50 and I got 55%. So, all right. Hey, you and I are starting to figure this single entry tool out.
Hey, what week are we in? 10 only took us 10 weeks.
Yeah, it took us 10 weeks of doing 2 shows a week too to figure it out. We're starting to get there, man. Starting to get there. Single entry tool too is included with all those subs. Appreciate you guys. Follow Matt at Matt_Gajewski. Thanks for joining us every morning, by the way. We enjoy doing this show and try and get you guys set up and make it somewhat entertaining in the process. I'm at Laffy_D on Twitter, LOUGHY_D. We'll see you guys back here tonight, live before lock. That's Greg and myself. You got anything coming up on the Odd Shopper side, on the DFS side, football, basketball, whatever it may be?
Ton of college football. Anytime there's a slate, we're doing a betting video for it. Sometimes it's me solo, sometimes it's me and Ben. And then NFL stuff as usual. These showdowns with you and live before lock.
Good stuff. Anyway, appreciate you guys. We'll catch you back here for the next one. Peace.